I'm a huge fan of Akame ga Kill. I've watched the anime multiple times. I collect the manga. I've done character analysis videos, and have even composed concept themes for the characters. But my favorite thing to do most of all is to think of what-if scenarios. That's what we're going to do in this episode of the Character Dive. To kick things off, let's talk about Tatsumi, the leading man of the series. He's a skilled warrior with a brave and heroic heart who will go out of his way to protect those who are important to him. Through a set of uncanny events, he winds up with the elite assassin group, Night Raid. He fights alongside them to eliminate the evil within the capital. But here's a thought that's crossed my mind. What if Tatsumi never joined Night Raid? How would things play out for these characters? Buckle up, because things are about to get wild on the Character Dive. What if Tatsumi never joined Night Raid? Well, they would have killed him.
Is that supposed to be encouragement or a threat?
But that's too simple of a response. Let's suppose the circumstances were slightly different. Let's start off at the beginning of the first episode. Close to the actual events of the story, we see Tatsumi applying for a job at the job agency. Of course, he gets kicked out. This is where Tatsumi meets Leone for the first time. However, Leone wasn't there. She was off doing something else that day. So what is Leone doing? Maybe she's already at the tavern, just chilling. Or maybe she's chilling at the hot springs. Either way, she's just chilling. So what does Tatsumi do? He continues searching around for ways to make money. He gets a few odd jobs here and there. But then he stumbles across wanted posters of Night Raid. Curious, he asks around about them. A part of him wants to make money by bringing one of them in, but he's unsure about going after human targets. It's now nighttime. Tatsumi finds an inn and rents out a room. He settles in, and just as he's about to go to sleep, he hears a ruckus happening outside on the street. While outside, he follows the sound of a person in distress. Once on the scene, he spots Akame, standing before a wounded soldier. Akame locks eyes on Tatsumi with her bright red eyes. Tatsumi draws his sword. However, Akame tells him that he is not a target. This catches him off guard. After Akame slays the soldier, she flees the scene, with Tatsumi catching a glimpse of the other members of Night Raid. On a side note, because he wasn't found in the street by Aria, Tatsumi never knew about the fate of his two former comrades, Sayo and Ieyasu. The next morning, Tatsumi continues to look for work. While doing so, he hears about the Imperial Guard, and that they are searching for members of Night Raid. Due to him being a witness of the murders that took place on the streets, he is prompted to register. He applies for the job. The captain of the Imperial Guard, Ogre, takes a look at Tatsumi's resume. He's puzzled at the idea of him mentioning danger beasts, so he asks him for a demonstration. After doing so, Ogre is impressed by Tatsumi's skill, and he hires him as a new recruit. Man, just picture Tatsumi decked out in that uniform. This would also set a completely different tone to the series. Let's kick things up a notch, shall we? This is where Tatsumi would meet Seiryu for the first time. Due to Seiryu's sense of justice, big air quotes around that, it's likely that she would want to assist Tatsumi. After all, it is his first time being on the force, as well as his first time being in the capital. Under these circumstances, the two of them would become acquainted. Not saying they would be besties or anything, just regular friends. Or they could be friends with benefits, who knows. You know what? Let's play with that idea for a little bit. Let's say Tatsumi found Seiryu attractive. I mean, why wouldn't he? Seryu's cute, full of energy, and she's nice to him. Would I ship them together? Yes. Yes, I would.
Oh, hell no!
Moving forward, despite things looking up for him, he's still thinking about his encounter with Night Raid, as Akame had spared him. He ruminates on this for a while. Meanwhile, with Tatsumi being absent from Night Raid in this timeline, a different member of the team gets the drop on Captain Ogre. Regardless of who it is, the outcome would most likely be the same as the canonical events of the story. The question is, who would be the one to assassinate Ogre? Akame and Leone are already busy with Garmel. I'd say Lullaby would be the one to do the job. He's one of the few members who doesn't have a wanted poster of him. It might be a challenge for him to lure Ogre into a vulnerable position, but Lullaby would find a way. The reason they wouldn't send Bulat is because his imperial arms in Curcio would attract too much attention. You could make the argument that all he would have to do is use Trump Card and go invisible, but he can only do this for a certain amount of time. He would also have to use the Trump Card prior to entering the capital. There's a lot of complications that needs to be considered. I'm not exactly sure what mine would do. I think sniping would attract too much attention, considering the fact that it would be in the middle of the capital. In addition to this, Night Raid's battle against Headhunter Zhang would also play out in a similar fashion. As our story progresses, the Imperial Guard is now on the hunt for Night Raid. In these events, Tatsumi pairs up with Seryu. Both Tatsumi and Seryu encounter Mine and Shell. During this encounter, Tatsumi finds out about the death of Seryu's father. Seryu also expresses her vendetta against Night Raid. Before we get in too deep, what about the mission that Leone was on? In the original timeline, Tatsumi was with her on that mission. With Tatsumi being absent, the mission would have been slightly more difficult. Regardless, I could still see her successfully completing the mission. It would just be more of a challenge. Now, let's go back to Tatsumi's battle. Now this is how I think the battle would go down. It's likely that Tatsumi would take on Shell, as the two of them both use melee weapons. Seryu, partnered with Koro, would take on Mine, as the two of them use projectile weapons. At some point during this battle, Tatsumi would question Shell as to what Night Raid's motives are. Shell tells Tatsumi that their purpose is to eliminate the evil within the capital. Tatsumi finds this response to be vague. Not only that, the actions of Night Raid don't line up with that statement. Meanwhile, Seryu is having fun toying with Mine. Because it's 2-on-1 and Seryu is a skilled fighter, it's likely that Mine would be struggling. Now I know people like Mine and want to defend her, but let's be real. She's not a close-range combat fighter. Seryu, on the other hand, is a practitioner of martial arts. To top it off, canonically we've seen Seryu beat the crap out of Mine. So it would make sense that it would happen here. And since Shell is busy dealing with Tatsumi, she wouldn't be able to save her. You could say that it's lights out for our pig-tailed friend. However, knowing Shell's character, she would stop her match against Tatsumi and run to Mine's rescue. You could argue that Seryu would stop Shell from saving Mine, but she's too busy being cocky and laughing. All of this has Tatsumi confused. He sees some level of goodness in Night Raid. Tatsumi senses that he might be in the wrong here. He withdraws from the battle and takes Seryu with him. To keep things simple, let's just say they got away safely. And nobody died. Shell survived. Night Raid remains complete. Of course, Seryu would be pissed at Tatsumi, as she was close to getting revenge for her father. Unsure of how to respond, Tatsumi is feeling conflicted about all of this. Next up, the boat mission. Since Shell is alive, it's likely that she would be partnered with Akame in place of Lullaby, where Lullaby would be on the boat in place of Tatsumi. Regardless of the roles being switched around, it's likely that the battle would play out in a similar fashion. As unfortunate as it may be, Bulat would still end up being killed at the end of the battle. So what's Tatsumi doing since he's not with Night Raid? At the moment, he and Seiryu are both training their combat skills. Seiryu asks Tatsumi if he wants to get stronger, and makes a similar proposition that Ogre had made her. Tatsumi is curious and wants to see what Seiryu is thinking. Seiryu introduces him to Dr. Stylish. However, unlike Seiryu, Tatsumi isn't too keen on having artificial enhancements. Dr. Stylish is understanding of this, but leaves the option open for him anyways. It's now time for Esdeath to choose the members of the Jaegers. Tatsumi isn't selected at first, but he does enter that competition. In this timeline, it's under his own terms. Of course, Esdeath takes a liking to him. This moment plays out pretty much the same as the original timeline. Tatsumi is confused at first, until he sees Seiryu. Seiryu informs Tatsumi on who the Jaegers are, and what their mission is. Tatsumi is completely baffled by all of this. However, in this timeline, Tatsumi doesn't know who Esdeath is, so he doesn't have any ill feelings to her. Curious, Tatsumi decides to stick around the Jaegers to figure out what their motives are. I think this is a good place to wrap up this story. I could go a little further. We'll get into that in another video. What other cool what-if stuff do you want me to cover? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, you have yourselves a wonderful day, and I will see you next time on the Character Dive.